Hello, what's up, everybody? What's going around? Everything all right? Yeah, that sounds great. Sounds great. Yeah. Today, I do have a grammar lesson that I came up with, and we gotta talk about it in detail, right? Right? ቴንሶችን እናያለን እስኪ. The most important test controls in English we gotta talk about right away, right? The most important test contrast in English. This is the point. This is the lesson we are going to talk about and look at some illustrative examples to understand how these two tenses are basically used for expressing two different situations in the past, right? So we're gonna talk about these contrast tenses, and we are going to look at the thing that makes them different, right? They couldn't be the same, by the way. Sometimes they may come in a combination. Sometimes they may come in a series, but they couldn't be the same in usage wise. One is completely different from the other in comparison, right? So we gotta talk about it, and we are going to look at the thing that makes them different in comparison. Like, you know what is the simple? We need to define it from the very beginning. We need to define what the simple past tense is. It has its own unique structure. It has its own pattern that makes it different from the others. Like subject plus verb to. Subject plus verb to. The verb which are basically used in the simple past tense must be in the verb to form. It must be in the verb to form. Right? So what kind of tense is the simple past tense? It has its own structure, just as I have told you before, and I've already told you the structure, the pattern of the simple past tense, the structure of the simple past tense, right? So what kind of tense is it? What kind of tense is the simple past tense? You know what? The simple past tense is a kind of tense basically used for expressing an already completed action in the past, used to express, used to mention an already completed action in the past, and we know exactly when the point of time that action or completed. We know definitely the point of time, the time. We know definitely the time when the action completed. But basically, we use the simple past tense for expressing an action already completed in the past. I arrived at the bus station. I arrived at the bus station. It tells us what happened. The simple past tense tells us what happened. So I arrived at the bus station. We're talking about an action already completed before, right? So the simple past tense is basically used for expressing that kind of situation, right? To express something already completed. And we know definitely, and we know exactly the time. We know definitely the time when that action completed. This is all about the simple past tense. So the next one is the past perfect tense. It has also its own pattern. It has also its own structure that makes it different, right? You know what? One thing that you have to know is that all tenses do have their own pattern, do have their own structure. That makes them one completely different from the other in usage, in pattern wise, in structure wise. They are not expected to have the same structure, the same pattern for every tense. That's that's the main thing that makes one tense completely different from the other in pattern wise. So they couldn't be the same by any aspect, anyways. Right? They are completely different in pattern. They are also completely different in usage, right? They couldn't be the same in usage wise as we are. The function is completely different, right? So what is the past perfect tense? It has a structure, subject plus had plus verb 3. We need to have the past participle form of the verb when you gotta talk about the past perfect tense, right? Had plus past participle form of the verb is the structure of the past perfect tense. It's the pattern of the past perfect tense. This is one thing that makes it completely different from the others, right? So what kind of tense is the past perfect tense? It's basically to talk about an action that happened before another past action. The past perfect tense is basically used for expressing an action that happened before another past action, right? ከአንድ ካለፈ ድርጊት ቀድሞ የተደረገ ሌላ ያለፈ ድርጊት ነው ፓስት ፐርፌክት የሚባለው ማለት። Do you understand what I mean? That is the way how we can use the past perfect tense for expressing an already completed action in the past, and we know definitely that, and we know exactly the action which is in the past perfect is already completed before another past. For example, let me give you one proof example. Let me give you a kind of illustrative example to show you how the correct grammar is going to be used when the simple past tense comes in a series with the past perfect tense. When the simple past tense comes in combination with the past perfect tense, you know, they are not expected to have the same expression. That's the thing. What makes the simple past tense different from the past perfect tense. But they may have the probability to come together in a series. They may have the possibility to come in combination. But the simple past tense is basically used for expressing a later completed action, an action completed next, right? But the past perfect tense is not. It's basically used for expressing an already completed action before another past action. Before another past action. So we need to understand that. We need to understand that. For example, when arrived at the bus station, the bus had already left. When I arrived at the bus station, the bus had already left. So which action do you think happened first? Which action do you think happened earlier? Is that the past perfect tense or the simple past tense? The past perfect tense is the earlier past. As an action completed before another past action. So which action do you think happened first? From the example that I gave you, when I arrived at the bus station, the bus has already left. The bus had already left is the earlier action, which completed before another past, which completed before I arrived at the bus station. ከአውቶቡስ መናኸሪያው ከመድረሴ በፊት ቀድሞ አውቶቡሱ ከመናኸሪያው ወጥቷል ማለት። ስለዚህ የአውቶቡሱ ቀድሞ ከመናኸሪያው መውጣት ቀድሞ የተደረገ ድርጊት ነው ማለት ነው። ቀጥሎ ደግሞ ምንድነው? ሰውየው ከመናኸሪያው ደርሷል ማለት ነው። So we're going to talk about two different actions happened at different point of time in the past. So the earlier past must be the past perfect tense, and the latter past must be the simple past tense. So when I arrived at the bus station, the bus had already left. So the bus had already left is the earlier past, and I arrived at the bus station is the latter past. That's the second past. This is a way how we can use the simple past tense and the past perfect tense in combination, being connected by the right discourse markers, right? There are some recommendable discourse markers we need to use basically to link one from the other when the two tenses come in a series, right? Like, when, before, after. So the bus had already left before I arrived at the bus station. That's correct. The bus has already left before I arrived at the bus station. ከመናኸሪያው ከመድረሴ በፊት አውቶቡሱ ቀድሞ ወጥቷል ማለት። But if you use after, you couldn't have the same structure like the example that I gave you. You couldn't have the same pattern. You couldn't have the same structure in comparison. It's going to be different. The structure is going to be different, right? After the bus had already left, after the bus had already left, I arrived at the bus station. Do you understand how it's going to be different in usage? Even, the discourse marker, you can have right away to link those pair of sentences affects the pattern of the structure, of the tenses we are using, right? So when you use after plus perfect tense, and then simple past tense. If you use before instead of it, past perfect, kaza, before as a connector, you can say before I arrived at the bus station, the bus had already left. That's correct. So before plus simple past tense, and then past perfect, right? After plus past perfect, and then simple past. You see how the structure is going to be different. You see how it's going to be different, the way how we are going to use these two tenses in combination by using the different discourse markers that we have used before. So, there is a pattern difference. There comes a pattern difference. There comes a structure difference depending on the kind of discourse marker you are going to use right away, right? It depends. So the thing that you have to put in the mind so far is that when the simple past tense and the past perfect tense comes in a series, when they come in combination, being connected by the discourse marker that I have mentioned before, you know what? The earlier past is always the past perfect tense, and the latter past is the simple past tense. So this is a way how we can use the simple past tense and the past perfect tense in combination by connecting them, by joining those pair of sentences by the recommendable discourse markers that we have dealt with before. This is what I have for today. So next time I will try to bring up some grammar lessons, and we'll try to talk about it. Yeah, appreciate you for having your time here, right? Thank you very much indeed.